Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great week, about to have a great weekend. As always, thank you for joining me. And if you do have a training question, please ask in the chat to the right of your screen, I think it is. I'm not sure. Nothing really crazy happened. We had another great week of training. I think this is the third week that we've had I believe 11 eighth graders that are currently eighth graders move up to the varsity training, and they are doing an absolutely wonderful job. And that really goes credit to them and their work ethic through the 7th and 8th grade. And a lot of credit goes to my wife, Julian, who's done a remarkable job. As if anyone's a coach or in this, whatever it's strength training or anything else, you guys understand that if there's one of me and 40, 50, 60 of the kids, things can get very hectic. And having those kids know what to do, know how to set up the bench and the squat racks, know how to do bar math, know how to obviously do the movements and stuff like that, what a difference it makes. And they're able to flow very seamlessly into our training. So if possible, if you are in a situation where you're in a high school or some kind of training situation, you could have some kind of feeder program. If you can get that off the ground, it doesn't have to be super comprehensive, but even if just raising their basic levels of fitness, especially in a large group setting, it makes a huge difference. So as always, guys, today is Friday, which at London means we end the training week at We'll Always Trap Bar on Friday. And we are doing the Prowler. And last week's Prowler workout was absolutely phenomenal. We maintained the good rest periods, and we did one of those rest periods with the low handles. And everyone who's done the Prowler on the low handles knows what a monumental suck fest that is. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Remember, guys, ask the questions. I'll be here for about an hour. I will do my best to answer every question, even if I don't know it. All right, here we go. Richard Meyer. Oh, boy. Okay. I'm new to training, he writes, seeking some guidance. There's like a whole bunch of these questions, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize this a little bit. New to training, he needs some guidance. He has access to kettlebells, dumbbells, a pull-up bar, gymnastics rings, TRX, a weighted vest, and no barbell, though. Besides, he wants to increase his muscle mass. He just wants to get generally fit. He's 40 years old. He's healthy, though he is skinny fat. He's not doing any other training, and he wants to maximize his routine. I'm open to training with weights or a body weight for 3 or 4 times a week. In terms of my current fitness level, I can manage a few push-ups on my knees with proper form, but I can't do a pull-up. Okay, so as always, guys, if in this situation, you'd really like to go to someone who really knows what they're doing, because it's hard to learn all the ins and outs of training. But what I would probably do is every day, hold on one second here. I have this. All right, this is a sample training day. I don't know how many check marks are on here, but that's how many rounds I did. So what I want you to do, Richard, is make 5 of these. I don't know. There we go. 5 little lines. And every time you do a set of squats, push-ups, and let's just say leg raises or some kind of crunch. So let's say every day you make 5 of those little lines. And every time you do 5 squats, 5 elevated push-ups, and maybe 5 or 10 crunches, okay? Make a little mark and do that every single day. So get out a piece of paper every day, make 5 slashes, and then cross them off. Do that, let's just say for 30 days, for a month, okay? And see how you feel. You can up the squats to maybe 10 or something in there, but every day do some body weight squats, nice and controlled. And if you don't know how to do any of that stuff, you're on the internet, go ahead and look it up. Look up body weight squat, look up how to do an elevated push-up, and look up how to do any kind of basic ab work like a crunch. Just real easy. Doesn't have to be a full setup or anything like that. I wouldn't recommend that. And once a day, try to walk. Again, I don't know your fitness levels, but let's just say for 30 minutes minimum up to an hour. So every day you do that for a month. But I don't know why you have gymnastics rings and a TRX and weighted vest and stuff. I don't think you need, or a pull-up bar. If you can't do a push-up, I think you just don't even worry about all that stuff, and just worry about getting those 5 rounds in of squats, push-ups, and some kind of abdominal work, and then go from there. And the key to all this stuff, guys, I know I'm harping on this all the time, and I apologize, but if you're consistent with that for the rest of your life, obviously you want to push a little bit harder, but the key is just doing it every single day and do what you can do in the beginning. I use my young son as an example. We start off with a couple squats and like 1 push-up every day, and now he's blossomed. I think yesterday he tested out. He's in 6th grade. I think he did 12 pull-ups. So just the importance of being consistent. And then, with James, it took forever for him to get a pull-up. I mean, forever. It took like 2 years of doing, just basic training stuff. And then all of a sudden, all that work, all that consistency just paid off. And now he's able to do pull-ups. Well, he's not the king of pull-ups, but just to be able to do 1 was pretty amazing. Up now he's at 12. So that's the power of consistency and effort. And if we're going to be completely honest, James is young. He trains because that's what we do, but he doesn't hate it. He loves seeing the progress, but he's not going in there balls out all the time. Obviously, he doesn't care about it as much as some of us would. So it's important to note that even some modest effort and being consistent can pay off. Obviously, you'd like to give more effort and all that stuff. So, but again, 30 days, make 5 slashes on a piece of paper. Put an X or put a line through those slashes, and 5 rounds, and then walk every single day. And then worry about all the other stuff, the weight vest, the TRX stuff later. You just need to get in some basic fitness shape. Okay. Woo! All right. I don't know what this lower secondary. All right. Asks a question. He says, hey, Jim, can you please explain how James's different warm-ups look like and how they differ for each training day as far as exercise selection and sets and reps? I'm looking for a warm-up for my 13-year-old son. Again, I did a whole video on this, but I asked my wife because my son trains with my wife for the most part. So I asked her today, and this is what he does. It doesn't differ on any training day. It's the same thing. He does pull-ups, push-ups, bodyweight squats, and jumping jacks. And he does that every minute on the minute for 10 minutes. The reps on the squat are always 10. The reps on the jumping jacks, I think, are 10, 5 or 10. It doesn't really matter. And then each kid is given a different amount of push-ups and chin-ups according to his level. So you have to decide what that is. I don't know what that is for you and for your 13-year-old kid, but so it's squats, push-ups, some kind of chin-up, pull-up, whatever you want to call it. I vary your grip, and then jumping jacks. Again, 10 squats, let's just say 10 jumping jacks, and let's start with like 3 push-ups and 1 pull-up, and start with just 5 rounds and see how they do. But the kids, that's junior high, that's their basic warm-up for 10 minutes, every minute on the minute. So again, guys, it doesn't have to be super complex, but just a nice little warm-up, guys. They're getting on and off the ground. They're bouncing around a little bit. They're using their arms, legs, all that good stuff. And what a difference it makes, though. Holy cow. All right. Chad Jones says, hey, I just finished Dan John's 10,000 kettlebell challenge, and I'm back into 5 through 1. Your advice on not being tied to the training plan that day was huge for me this week. I was exhausted, so I cut the work short. Okay. I think Chad is referencing some of the stuff we talked about on here. And listen, like whenever you go into a training day, guys, it's awesome to have a plan and everything written out. But sometimes, dude, you're going to have to make, sharp right turns, sharp left turns. Sometimes you may have to backpedal a little bit. That doesn't mean you don't push through a lot of that stuff, but there's sometimes, and you will understand this as you train more and more, that the juice is not worth the squeeze on some training days, and you have to be very careful and with that stuff, especially as you get a little bit older and recoveries sometimes hard to come by, especially coming off a challenge. I think Dan John's 10,000 kettlebell challenge, I believe that's over a month. So I'm not sure what you did, if you did anything other than the kettlebell swings. I'm assuming you did. So, but that's awesome, Chad. Just listen to your body. It's telling you stuff, and sometimes you ignore it, and sometimes you have to acknowledge it. And again, that takes time. Sean Dunn says, thanks for doing these. I've been using the Forever book. It's been awesome. Would you talk a little bit more about foundation training for recovery? I heard you mention it last Friday. All right, Sean. So foundation training, I found out Vincent DeCenzo sent me a link to it, and Vincent heard about it on the forum, the Jim Wendler forum, and I'm not sure who first mentioned it, but it wasn't my finding. And it's hard to explain what it is. You have to watch the videos, but I guess it's kind of like a isometric style of, I hate to say yoga, because it's really not that. It just strengthens your back, and you're just kind of I feel like you're realigned a little bit. I know that's really kind of a bad way of saying it, but the most important thing, and I heard Eric, I think that's his name. Oh man, I'm gonna feel like an ass if that's not his name. Goodman, Mr. Goodman, there we go, say that, his main goal is not to be better than yoga or Pilates or whatever else. His goal is to not have you take Aleve or Advil or some kind of pain medications. So I've watched a number of different videos. I've done a number of different workouts, and I've kind of combined some different stuff while watching a video and going along. I think it's super important, though, especially for guys who aren't into that world, is to put the video on and listen to his coaching cues. I think that's super important. Even if I do like a basic yoga thing that I've done a million times, I still put it on, and I still listen to the cues, and I'm still getting coached. And the other thing, Sean, you have to understand is a lot of the things that Eric's or whoever's running the video is going to ask you to do, sometimes you can't do them. So you have to learn how to modify to your level. And so just understand that it's okay if you can't do some of the position holds and all that stuff. And it takes time to understand, his coaching cues a little bit. I'm not saying they're confusing, but you have to learn. It's just a different way of, I guess, oh my God, healing your body. I don't know how else to say it. It's and they're not like terribly complex things that you're doing, but how you do them, big surprise there, right? How you do something comes into play. And I know that when I adjust for my abilities, and I'm working very hard when I do the foundation training, I just don't mail it in. And sometimes it's incredibly uncomfortable, and sometimes it's annoying, and I want to yell at Mr. Goodman. I think his name is Eric Goodman. Anyway, highly recommend it. I'm not saying it's going to work for you. Just try it out, maybe at night before you go to bed, an hour or two before you go to bed, and just see how you feel, and see if you wake up feeling better. And but it's not like massive hard stretching. It's really hard to understand for me to put into words. So I'm sure he's explained this a million times in interviews, though. But I highly recommend it. Again, I don't know him. I've never met him. I'm terribly antisocial, so I'll probably never talk to him. But I think he's done a really good job. And I think his coaching is very good too, which I think is super important when you're doing something new that's a little bit different, that he takes you through it and kind of explains how it should feel. So, all right, here we go. Tim Snow says, hey, Jim, regarding walrus every day, do you think that all those bodyweight vest squats can cause knee pain? Yes. Also, doing only chins and push-ups for upper body is enough for stimulus. The only variations that I do are abs, single leg work, and some face pulls. So, Tim, there's two ways of looking at this. If I'm going to be completely honest, I think you should have tons of variety, especially if you're going every day. Man, throw in different stuff. Throw in some kettlebell stuff, throw in some dumbbell stuff, single leg things. If you can do dips, do your push-ups maybe a little bit different. Isometric hold at the top or bottom for 5 seconds and then cut the reps down. There's a million things you can do. But if when I first started doing the weight vest stuff, I didn't vary anything because I just had non-negotiables, and my goal wasn't to build my body, so to speak, with dips and all this stuff. All I wanted to do was get back to doing something that was very difficult for me as far as discipline. And I needed to get back to working hard and going into that weight room twice a day and feeling like crap. And I needed to work hard again. And due to some injuries and stuff, I can still bench, squat, and deadlift. I just can't do it very hard. And I felt like that was kind of missing. So there is a time and place for just sticking to the 3 basic things and going totally ham loaf. But in the big picture, I think it's important to do some different things. And, instead of doing, for example, pull-ups, you do some kind of row or some fat man row. Instead of doing body weight squats, do some kettlebell swings, some kettlebell snatches, farmer's walk, bear crawls. I did a lot of bear crawls too. I'm trying to think of anything else. And obviously with the upper body push, you could do some kind of dumbbell press, standing, like the standing military press or whatever you want to say, kettlebell stuff. And obviously dips and push-ups and stuff like that. So in the big picture, Tim, you need to have a wide variety. However, if what you're going for right now is a little bit, quote unquote, bigger than just getting your chest big and your triceps big and all that stuff, there's a time and place for just going absolutely ham loaf on a few things. And that way I never had to think about anything. I just went in there and it was like on autopilot. And what a difference it made. It made me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys understand this, but that non-negotiable hard training done every single day made me a better person. It made me more disciplined. It made me understand what it's like to be tired, which made me kind of a better coach. It's easy to be a coach when you're just standing there yelling at kids. I understood what the kids felt a lot of times. And even though I have that background, it's easy to romanticize how tough you were. I'm sure everyone knows this, right? Oh, in my day, we did this. Well, man, doesn't mean you're going to do all the same stuff that your athletes are doing, but you can work very hard at whatever level you're at right now, whatever limitations. You can still find something to work very hard in. As an example, right now, I'm pushing the prowler a half mile 5 days a week, and it's miserable. There's some days, man, I'm barely finishing that thing. I feel like absolute crap. I almost need like an hour just to recover, which is not very ideal, but understand that's how I'm doing the hard thing. And for me, the prowler at this point is really what I want to do. So I just do it. And the rest of the training stuff is not terribly hard, but I think that's super important to do. So, all right, I'll stop waxing on here. Albert Wing asks, is doing different 5-3-1 templates considered as periodization? Is there other ways you can recommend? All right, so let's define periodization real quick. Periodization is nothing more than a plan. And so, yes, you could do different 5-3-1 templates, and that could be considered periodization just because it's a plan. When people think of periodization, they think of the classic, the Western style, he starts with sets of 10 for a couple weeks, then 8, then 6, then 5, 3, whatever, stuff like that. I think Dave Tate called it the Western method of periodization. There's ways to obviously periodize any kind of training program, even in conjugate style or concurrent training, which we all know is just raising several abilities, which is much different than what we call the Western method of periodization. You can still plan in that style of training. So, but Albert, the thing that I will point you to is in the Forever book. I show you how you can periodize shorter training cycles from, I think it's up to 3 cycles, and then kind of vary some stuff within those 3 cycles so you can kind of have a little bit more of a detailed plan. I am not a big fan personally of periodizing something over a long period of time. There's too many variables that come up. I like keeping my periodization plans fairly small, maybe 3 months or so, somewhere in that area, and then coming back to another thing and then adjusting for that. So, but I'm not big on there might be a massive macro overview, for example, but it's not terribly specific. So that's what I believe. It's too hard to plan 12 weeks in advance or 12 months in advance, specific things, because dude, it's hard to plan for one day. let alone 365 or more. So, all right. Taylor Ham. Okay. I have been in the busy season for construction. Oh, boy. So I've dropped the 2 days lifting program from beyond 6 weeks hypertrophy, 6 weeks strength. Good. It has been incredible. I have better recovery and better results, and I'm killing my PRs. I'm thinking of running this 2 day split the rest of the year since it allows me to focus on conditioning and mobility as well. Any thoughts or advice is appreciated. Thank you. All right, Taylor. So first of all, congrats on adjusting your training, which most of us have to do to fit your lifestyle and not going the other way around, which a lot of us did when we were younger. You know, when you start having a full-time job that kicks your ass a little bit and maybe having a family and any other things that you have going on, most of the time we have to adjust our training to fit our lifestyle. As long as you're fairly consistent with that training, you're going to be fine. So kudos to you for doing that and not trying to stick a square peg into a round hole. All right, now regards to running the split that you're doing for the rest of the year to focus on conditioning mobility. I think that's fine, Taylor, but I will say this, be open to new ideas if you feel like you want to do something different, okay? Just be open to that. Don't get so hard-headed because right now it's awesome that you're having success, but obviously not everything works all the time and forever. So just be open to that, Taylor. I get it, man. When I was younger, or hell, it fucking happens now. Let's just be honest. You know, when I have success with my training or with the kids' training, I kind of let it run and that you should. You got to let it run until it doesn't work. But when it stops working, don't be so hard-headed that you just keep on ramming your head into the wall. All right, be open to new ideas and be okay. Be okay with changing a little bit. All right, Julian says, what should I do if my training max has hit my true max? Okay, so I assume that means basically, as an example, on your 5-3-1 week, you're hitting maybe 1 or 2 reps. So what I would do is I would back up quite a bit, and I would try to stay at that for a while. Maybe 2 or 3 cycles, get some time to refocus on bar speed, snappy reps. You're probably going to feel a little bit better and really start to bring up your assistance work, especially your chin-ups and your rows and your dips and all your dumbbell work and your lower body work and your abs and low back. So if I were you, I'd back that up. Whatever you can hit for a solid set of strong 5 reps, put that as your training max. You're not going to get any weaker. All right. And then raise up your assistance level and make sure your bar speed is just balls on awesome. Okay. I have said this before, and I know everyone here wants to probably punch me in the wiener, but we operate at a very low training max with the kids I work with, and they have great days upon great days upon great days. I don't know if I mentioned this last week. No, I didn't, because I think this happened last week. One of the kids who I've been coaching, he's a sophomore, I believe. 2-sport athlete, football and wrestling. The majority of his deadlift training is done at, I'd say, no higher than 245. And because he was wrestling, which I know everyone here knows, he had to maintain a weight and he had to cut a lot. So this allowed him to, even when he had weight cuts, to have great days training. Long story short, most of his time is spent in that area on his work sets. Last Friday, I told him, because I trust him, I said, listen, you do whatever you want to do today. Just don't do anything dumb. You know, I trust you. And so he worked up. He did 315 for 12 great reps, all dead stopped, and all held at the top for 1,000. So he's not just pumping up and down. And I think it's a good illustration of what happens when you have a solid training max and just let the work do the work. You don't have to put your hand in the fire with bar weight all the time. Okay. So, and then I asked him, I saw him the next day on Saturday. I happened to see him and I said, hey, you know, how you feeling? He's like, I feel like absolute Duke. And that's because training at that level does have consequences, especially when you're an athlete and you're doing different things. So just understand that. Don't get so wrapped up that your ego is tied into your training max. Okay, just understand that. Okay, Patrick says, what's the best way to find your correct training max in all 4 compound exercises? So the most important thing is, I hope you should know how to do the lifts. And I would go up in approximately 10% increments as you work up. So for example, if you've squatted before and let's say you think you can squat 225, somewhere in that range, have a general idea. Start with the bar, 95, 135, and then go up in 20-pound increments and just do sets of 2 to 3 reps. And once you get to a weight that you can feel is going to be, you probably hit 5 or more, go ahead and do as many reps that are good at that weight, and then use the rep max calculator and go from there. But it's no different than what you would do kind of going for a max attempt in a meet, except you don't go up to a 1 rep max. You go up to something that you can hit for probably between 5 and 10 reps, and use the rep max calculator that's in the book to figure out your training max. So, but you don't have to go, they don't have to be massively accurate, meaning you don't have to go all out. You should have an idea. If you could do a weight and you do 5 reps and you're like, yeah, I probably could have done 8, you can probably factor that in. But always start lighter than you think, guys. I know I harp on that again. I'm saying the same stuff. I say, I apologize, but it's true. You don't have to start out your training, guys, with the most accurate balls deep. Oh boy. Training max. Be very conservative and let it build up, guys. Let the strength build up. Take that time to build that muscle mass. Take that time to build your general fitness levels, okay? So that's what I would recommend. Again, 10% jumps. Obviously, if you're doing this program, you should have a pretty good idea where you're at. It doesn't have to be, again, you don't have to know if you squat 225 or 235. As long as you're, like, I'm a little over 200 pounds, you should be okay. So, all right. Ooh, my good buddy Caleb. Caleb Salers is a ex-athlete at London. I am now coaching his brother, but Caleb was just recently did a powerlifting meet, not recently, and then got a little injured training. Okay, Caleb says, what is the best time to get core in? Example, should I do it before, after, or work in it between sets? All right, so this is what I would recommend. This is, remember, Caleb is a power lifter. So if I was a power lifter, Caleb, which you are, the ab exercises that you do, I believe, should be a main assistance exercise. So you would do it, and I generally would do it like, let's say you do your main lift and maybe a couple little assistance lifts, and then you would, towards the end of the workout, generally speaking, okay? So I would do that towards the end of the workout, but I wouldn't treat it like you do face pulls or, band tricep push downs. You treat it like a real big, strong exercise, okay? And I would have a large variety of abdominal movements that way, because doing abs is boring as hell. So be as creative as you want, have some fun, but we used to do stupid stuff. We did on the stability ball, someone would stand on our feet, we put a bar on our back, arch all the way back as far as we can, and do a sit-up. We did a lot of hanging leg raises, a lot of side bends, a lot of weighted ab work on the Roman chair, obviously ab wheel, stuff like that. So the most important thing with the ab work, and this is coming from someone who had very poor core strength until I started training for powerlifting. It was really bad. I did it on my squat and deadlift days like a main assistance exercise, so I really kicked ass. And then on my other 2 days that I trained that were mostly obviously upper body, I would still do some ab work, maybe 2 or 3 sets. They weren't always as hard, but sometimes they were. So I was doing those 4 days a week. But what I did, and this is, Louis Simmons talks about this, you have to raise that up and treat it as a main muscle movement. That doesn't mean that you max out on your sit-ups or anything like that, or your back extensions or something like that. But that means you do it hard and you try to get it stronger. When I love the 45-degree back raise, or the old back extension stuff, and you find ways to load it, whatever's easiest for you. You can use dumbbells, you can use a band. I always like putting a bar on my neck and then rolling down and coming all the way up and holding. That was incredibly, when you first do it like that, man, it is incredibly humbling. But it took, I'm going to say, about 3 or 4 years of that to get it up to par. It took some time. So it's, you're going to see some results, obviously. But when it got to the point where that was probably one of my biggest strengths, was my ab and low back work. And I really think that made a huge difference for me. So treat it like a big thing. All right. Scott Graham says, for recreational lifters, what reps do you recommend for the 5, 3, and 1 sets? Well, there's always going to be a lot of variation, but generally speaking, I like to see about 8 to 10 on your 3 and 1 week for the squat and trap bar or deadlift, and on the bench press, you like to see between 5 and 8 on your 5 through 1 week. Now, again, guys, you're going to realize at some point that your training maxes for all the lifts probably won't be the same. As an example, you can train at least I was able to, and the kids I work with, we train our trap bar much lower than we train our bench. And for whatever reason, that's how it works. I don't really care why. And your squat may be somewhere in between. So there's always going to be a little variation within there. And there's a lot of factors that come into play. But eventually you'll realize that your training maxes for the bench, squat, deadlift, and press are going to vary quite a bit. And that's fine. That is fine. And again, when you do a hard set, just because you did X amount of reps doesn't give you the right, so to speak, to move up. So make sure that you're 1,000% confident in what you did during that training block, and that you have earned the right to go up. If not, just stay there. Stay there, build that confidence, build that assistance work, and then maybe 1 or 2 more weeks or 1 or 2 more cycles, and you feel confident, go up. You don't have to go up all the time. And that's one of the things I've learned, and I've adjusted with not just, well, I don't use the barbell anymore, but that's one of the things that I've really learned over the 7 or 8 years or however long I've been at London, that the goal wasn't to increase the training max. I think that's something I've really started to realize. The goal is to build the toughness, build the resilience and speed of the human body projectile that's on the football field. All right. So I'm not terribly concerned with the 1 rep maxes or anything like that. I'm just concerned about building the armor and building a kick-ass athlete on the field. And that doesn't always mean that we're going to load heavier. All right. And as soon as I realize that, it makes things much easier, because the kids are always fresh. The kids' reps are always awesome. No one's getting hurt in the weight room. And when the kids go run and jump and do all their other stuff, whether that's in season or out of season, they're always ready for it. So just understand that, okay? Okay, Scotty Graham says, when trying to bodybuild the upper and athlete the lower, again, that's kind of my mantra for our young athletes that I work with. He then writes, if I'm running boring but big for the upper body, how would you structure for lower body? Well, it's going to depend a little bit on where you're at, but I would say no more than doing the main lift and then doing no more than 5 sets of 5 at your first set last. I'd cut all that out, and I'd rather do more jumping, more running, more assistance work. And the assistance work can be single leg work, abs, low back, dumbbell squats, stuff like that, prowler, sled. I'd much rather do that than do more barbell work. And that's just me. It works way better for the athletes. So that's just been my experience. We cut out all the supplemental work for the squat and deadlift, and everyone got better. Not just better in the deadlift and squat, but they got better as athletes, because they were able to do more athletic stuff. I guess that's kind of a crappy way of putting it. And we had nothing changed. Like kids still got as strong as they were before. So that's what I would do. And the other thing is just you are free to run, obviously boring but big for the upper body, but don't be afraid to cut that out and then start raising your assistance work. So instead of doing, for example, the 5 sets of 10 with the bench press, cut that out, hit the PR set, and then put on a weight vest and do 100 dips and 50 pull-ups. That's an example. Or take a pair of dumbbells that you can get for 15 reps and do 5 sets, 3 to 5 sets for as many reps as you can. So you're going to raise up the volume and you have a little different stimulus. Do some incline dumbbell stuff. We're big fans at London of doing different, 60 and 45 degree dumbbell incline pressing. And make sure that you're doing a lot of pulling work too, because you're doing a lot of pressing. Make sure you're getting in a lot of high volume pull-ups, curls, and a lot of rows. Huge fan of rows. There's a million different ways of doing them. So that's what I would recommend. So open up your eyes a little bit. Don't just center around the barbell. Find other ways to train, and your body will thank you. Okay. Okay. Well, this is interesting. I purchased all your books and subscribed to the forum. As a professional working with kids from scratch, why you don't provide a preparation manual or program for beginners who are very skinny and weak without high-skill barbell compound exercises to build GPP and muscle mass before doing squats, deadlifts, and bench presses? All right, so we've addressed this, my wife and I, many times. It's because there's no real set program. As a coach, you're going to have kids who vary massively, okay? And you don't just plug them in and do X, Y, and Z. They're going to develop at different rates. And a lot of times you're going to have to redo and redo and redo. When in the training theory, you should be able to do more, but that doesn't work like that, guys. It doesn't. So the reason why is because it would take probably 7 million pages of paper to go through every single variation and stuff. And that's why it's important to work with the coach. And if you don't know what to do, it just takes some time. And so the other thing, I'll be honest, dude, it takes a ton of time to do stuff like that. And I don't have that time right now. If I did all that, I'd have to cut out a whole bunch of stuff. And I have 2 kids, coaching. I have a business to take care of. And I would have to take something out of it. I can't just add stuff in. Listen, you can take this for what it's worth. This is just big pictures. The one thing that my wife and I do very well is we manage our stress. And that doesn't mean we don't do anything. We don't work with our kids and all that other stuff. It just means, listen, if we're going to add something into our life, we have to be willing to make that sacrifice because something's going to get compromised. So I think my wife and I do a very good job of kind of handing off different projects and different things as parents and as individuals. But to do that, and again, I don't know, I'm not sure you're saying working with someone from scratch because no one's really from scratch. And the other thing is these are athletes, and most of these kids, when they reach the training program, they've played sports for a number of years. So not a lot of kids are from scratch, so to speak. So that's why we do it, guys. And again, if anyone here has worked with kids, you guys know that there's a kid who can come in as an 8th grader and deadlift 250 pounds, and there's a kid who can't do a bodyweight squat. And so you're going to have all these different variables in there, and they're not all going to progress at the same rate. So that's just the way it goes. So we like to think that's how it goes, but it doesn't. There's, it's a messy world training young athletes. It's tough. And it can be incredibly rewarding, and it can be incredibly depressing too. It's tough to see how some kids just kind of get left behind. And it's hard to expect that maturity from them to want to push. And if you're lucky, that kid will have that and you'll be able to help them out. So, all right. So Ralkin. Okay. I think that's an L, maybe Riken. I don't know. All right. Hey, Jim. How would you program 5-1 for someone who can't currently deadlift? I had a back injury and now I'm back to decent light squats and I can swing a kettlebell. For now, I have done the full body workout 4 days a week since I'm going light with kettlebell swings on the deadlift day. Okay. All right. So this is what I would do. is I would have 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever works for your schedule. On the Mondays and Fridays, I would do a bench day and a press day. And each of those days, I would do some kind of lower body assistance. For example, one of those days you could do dumbbell squats or some kind of single leg. And the other day you would do kettlebell swings or any kind of kettlebell work that you're doing. And then on Wednesday, you would do your squat workout. So you're still doing lower body stuff 3 days a week. On the day that you squat, you can also do some upper body pulling and maybe some kind of pressing too. It doesn't really matter. You don't go crazy on that stuff. That's how I would do it if I were you. And I wouldn't worry about the deadlift right now. So again, Monday, bench, full body assistance. Maybe you put dumbbell squats in there or kettlebell swings. On Wednesday, you would squat and do assistance work for both your squat, and you can do some pulling, some pull-ups and rows and curls. And then on Friday, you would press and do, again, upper body assistance work and some kind of lower body assistance work. So that's what I would do. That is basically very much like a Joe DeFranco style training program. And we do that, we do something very similar for our right before our season starts, when our kids are going through 7-on-7s and they have the before 2-a-day start. That's how we change our training to adjust for all the running and all the different activities the kids are doing. So we take out the squat and we just trap bar on Wednesdays. So all right, here we go. Okay. Richard Stewart says, hi. Oh, geez, it just jumped on me. I apologize, guys. Hold on. All right. What are your thoughts on knees over toes training protocols? I've seen a little bit of what he does, Richard, but I am not like terribly, my knees never hurt. And I never really worked with kids who have bad knees, like to that point where we need specialized training programs. As always, man, if you have bad knees or something like that, man, I personally, if I were you, I'd give it a shot. But the most important thing, guys, is when you're watching something or reading something, is look at the big picture of what they're explaining to do, and then figure out how to put it in to your own experience of your training. For example, I know he's really big on backwards sled pulls. And that's something you could easily put into just about any kind of training program, whether it be for your assistance work, or you could do it on your off days, stuff like that. So he's obviously very smart. And the one thing I will tell you, as someone who has injuries and stuff like that, is it might work for you and it might not. And that's the tough thing to do when you have injuries, is a lot of what works for one guy may not work for the other. So, but look at the big picture of what he's talking about or what he's kind of preaching. Whatever it is, whether it be powerlifting or Olympic lifting or yoga, whatever. Try to look at the big picture and give it a shot. Give it an honest shot. But if something doesn't seem smart to you, or you don't understand how to fit it into your program, I probably wouldn't do it, man. Just because you got to rely on your experience a little bit. That doesn't mean you can't throw some caution to the wind occasionally, but that's one thing, is you got to kind of trust your heart and your mind a little bit. And I think that's super important to do. So again, I don't have a ton of knowledge on that stuff, and I wouldn't tell you, Richard, any other way. I think that's very derelict. And I see that way too much in this training industry. You have people pontificating on things that maybe they shouldn't. So I have no problem saying I don't know something. All right. Emil says, hey, Jim, I used to box. Okay. I did a lot of oblique work, and I realized I don't do it at all since lifting. Do you bother with training the obliques? I did when I was powerlifting, and it's probably not the most efficient way of doing it, but we would do side bends with a dumbbell or side bends on a 45-degree back raise, which requires a little bit of finessing so that you hit the obliques. I think it's important to do, but I don't think you need to do like 5,000 reps of it. I think 1 or 2 sets, fairly good sets a week, will probably get you going. And if you do have a lot of oblique work in your past, you don't have to do a lot to get back to where it is. So just understand that. So maybe 1 or 2 days a week when you're doing abs, throw those in. Or I'm sure there's other oblique exercises, but that's what we did. And it's hard to say if that, we did a lot of different ab work, but I always felt the next day my obliques were always screaming. The key when you're doing any of that stuff is make sure you're training the muscle where it needs to be, however you're doing it. Don't just do the movement, train the muscle. So, all right, Paulo says, hello, Jim. My wife decided to ask for my assistance in doing 5 through 1. She has been doing it for 2 years, and I'm planning to use the 7th deload week for her period week, even if it would mean to interrupt the leader. Yep. I also plan to resume the normal cycle after her period week and follow the normal schedule. Would this be a correct approach? Yes. I'll be honest, dude. I don't have much training experience around the mensies. So if that's, if her body feels like that and she needs to adjust, I think that's a good thing. Although I would probably say that there's tons of different variations of the deload that are in the Forever book. And I would probably customize that to each lift and to each week that you're kind of deloading. So if, for example, deadlifts are giving her hell right now, just back off a little bit, maybe not even deadlift and just focus on assistance work. But I think you're on the right track, Paulo. Very good. Adam Jones says, thanks for always doing this Q&A. What can be done with prowler work in only 10 meters? Usually do for time, sled sprints, then sled drag, repeat for 10 seconds, rest 60 seconds for conditioning. So 10 meters, wow, that's not very long. Wow. Yeah, if I had a prowler, I'd probably push it high handles or on the horns one way and then push it back on the low handles. You could obviously do it for time. You can try and do, go down and back and then make a mark. And maybe you do 50 of those. You can always do down and back with 1 plate, down and back with 2 plates, and go until you basically takes you forever to go back and forth. So it might be a little bit heavier. So if I were you, I'd probably do, the X amount of down and backs. That would be one. One would be to maybe log X amount of meters. I don't know how in shape you are. And then I would do one that's very, very heavy. But you're 60 seconds on, you're in rest for 60 seconds. I think that's fine. But don't be afraid to use the prowler or any kind of sled for kind of like a strength movement. And so you're going to need a little more rest than 60 seconds if you're kind of pushing really hard. We used to do some pretty stupid prowler stuff where we might do 4 sets of 40 yards, but that sled would be weighted as basically took forever to get down and even worse to get back. So, but vary your prowler weights, man. Don't just go light and fast. Go slow and heavy too. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of the prowler work that I do now is I just walk, which I don't know which one sucks. I think they both have horribleness written into both of them, whether you're sprinting or if you're pushing and just walking. So, but don't be afraid to try some different stuff there. Okay, Paulo writes, hey, by the way, I substituted the dips with the close grip, multi-grip bench press as suggested during the last live. Okay, I remember that. It has been feeling great. I'll monitor during the next weeks. Well, Paulo, the most important thing is not that you just stick with the close grip, multi-grip bench press or the football bar, but now you have another arrow in your quiver, so to speak. So you can now vary a couple different things with another exercise to throw in as an assistance movement. So that's awesome, man. I love the football bar, especially if you have a little bit of shoulder issues. It just takes a little bit getting used to. That's the only kind of thing. Okay, Emil says, what do you recommend for conditioning challenges to do over the weekends? So what I personally like to do is because of where I live, we basically live in we have a circle. It's about a half mile. And so I've done a mile straight, which was miserable. I mean, I stand and take a rest, but it's a mile. And that's done with X amount of weight, or I'll do a half mile with a miserable weight. So that's one thing, some kind of prowler thing. I've also done the trap bar, where you do it for a half mile. Bring some chalk with you because your hands will get gross. So that's another thing, although it's not really conditioning so much, it's just kind of a miserable time. The other two things I would highly recommend is going for either a weight vest walk or a long walk. So for example, if you don't have access to weight vests, say, listen, on Saturday, man, I'm going to walk 15 miles, either mark it off with your carb prior, or you can have like an app on your phone and just see how long it takes you to walk 15 miles. I think that would be awesome. And the other thing I love to do, and I know I've said this a million times, I like putting on the weight vest, or you don't even need the weight vest. Go up and down X amount of stairs. And I still have to do my, I think it's 100 rows I have to do. I haven't attempted that just yet. So 100 rows equals, I think, 4,000 steps climbed up and climbed down. So those are my things, and everyone can do as long as you're healthy enough, you don't have any injuries. The walk thing is awesome. I think you put in some headphones or you make some phone calls and just talk to your buddies. That's what I usually do on the super long walks. I'll call my son, and then Mason then quizzes me on rare NFL statistics. And surprisingly, I'm incredibly close to all these things. Or I'll call Rhodes up and we'll bullshit for the an hour or two, and then I'll call Mason for another hour or two. And they'll just keep me company. So, or you can just no headphones, listen to music, whatever. The point being is I think a good long walk kind of clears your brain. I love going outside. I love feeling, I also live in a rural area, so we get to walk on some long country roads, which is really nice, walking past cornfields and stuff like that. It's very peaceful. So if you have like a forest preserve or something, you can go walk, just see walk up and down. I just love doing anything outside that you kind of clear your brain. And then obviously you have the dumb shit too. Huge fan of the dumb stuff too. Just be ready. If you do it on Saturday, there's a good chance that, Sunday and Monday, you're not going to be feeling very good. So just understand there's always a price to pay, but that's all right, man. It's worth it. Just don't do it every day. All right. Big Wad, Johnny Wad. I'm sure you guys, all you old dudes, remember that guy. All right, morning coach. How do you determine if an athlete needs to repeat their current training cycle as opposed to adjusting their training max? Generally speaking, you watch the sets and you generally have an idea how many reps they should get for each exercise, and not just the reps, but how they perform the reps. So it's a matter of quantity and quality. And just understand that if there is a doubt, there is no doubt. So if you're ever like, I don't know, just repeat the cycle. There's nothing bad that can happen to it, okay? So that's what I would do. Have like a standard that, like, listen, if you get 6 reps that are done, I'm just giving an example, 6 reps on this day done to the standards that I think are awesome, and we'll go ahead and go up. But just remember, there's nothing wrong with repeating and expecting the standard to be met. Super important to understand that. Okay. Brad Curtis says, for people over 50, do you recommend jumping and agility drills, somersaults, etc.? How do you get over the fear of box jumps? I can jump onto plates, but not boxes. Okay, so Brad, this is an awesome question, buddy. And this is what I would say is I would be very careful with any of that stuff, especially if you don't have any experience, or you haven't really sprinted or done anything like that. So I would not do those. However, you can always do things that somewhat mimic it. For example, we have a 9-cone setup that we do at London, and you can find a lot of this stuff just with general, sports and football drills. When I do that stuff, I do it half speed. So I'm just moving. I'm not sprinting and doing all this crazy stuff. So when we're side shuffling and running, I'm not getting a super low stance and, crushing everything. I'm just kind of going through the movements and letting my body just do different things, but just not at the same speed. Okay. No, that's number one. So whatever you do, if you do any of these agility drills, especially beginning, just do them. Walk them if you have to. Just do different things. That's fine. With the box jumps, man, I totally get it. I obviously can't box jump like I used to. And so I would stick with the plates until you have some confidence. The one thing I've noticed, and this is maybe I can do a box squat, box jump much better than I can do just a regular box jump. So what that means is you set up whatever box you're going to jump on right in front of you, and then you set up a box behind you. You stand up, and you sit back on that box, you rock a little bit, and then jump up. It's much easier on my knees and my back, and I feel like it's just a million times easier. So that's something you might want to do. But I would be if you don't have the confidence, Brad, there's no reason you should do it. As long as, if you're jumping on the plates, that's fine. All right. As long as you're doing something, just be careful. But I don't think that that's something you need to push at 50 years old. I just think that the juice is not worth the squeeze. So be smart, be conservative with that stuff, man, but just a little bit goes a long way. So just understand that you don't have to go on a 40-inch box to reap the benefits. There we go. Can you provide, okay, this is Drone Homeless. Can you provide specifics about how your body feels and any mood changes that occur when you have pushed the intensity and volume of a session? I often feel heavy on my feet and depressed. So this is what I always felt, just completely run down. That's the best way to say it, almost like you're recovering from the flu. And I don't really get depressed or anything. I don't have that effect. But just just feel like a lump of shit. And you just feel like you want to sit in a chair and your brain feels kind of mushy. And that's how I always felt. I always, I remember that feeling. That doesn't mean you never should feel like that. It's just the majority of your training sessions, you should still feel like you did something, but you shouldn't feel completely run down. So that's what I always looked for. You can feel that, at least I was able to feel kind of that just overwhelming, I'm exhausted. Now if you always feel like that, then I would adjust your training volume intensity. And the other thing I would do, in the Forever book, I talk about what I call active recovery. If you follow the specifics on how to do it, don't turn it into like a training session, but just turn it into like a little workout, so to speak. It has done wonders for me. It has done wonders for a lot of people. That what I write in that book is not, I didn't develop any of that. I just kind of show you how to piecemeal stuff together. I think that's super important for someone who does suffer from that. So, and again, don't go crazy on that. I talk about that in the book, in the Forever book. So that's what I would recommend. All right. So, boy, I got to start hustling up here, guys. All right. I will get through all these, I promise. Hey, Jim, I want to start walking with a weight vest. I'm out of shape. How should I best start and progress? And what brand vest do you use? I have a X vest, weight vest, which is variable from 0 pounds to I think 84. And then I have it's a plate carrier. I can't remember, 5'11" plate carrier. So what I would recommend is start with no more than 10% of your body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, don't do any more than 20. And I would probably start with 30 minutes, walk for 30 minutes, and just see how you feel. And I would try and do something like that every single day. I usually started with 3 miles, which takes about 50 minutes or so, somewhere in there. I didn't push it and stuff. And I never really increased that too much. I had a route that I took, and I did that just about every single day. So if I did lift on the day, I would do it after I lifted. And so that's what I would recommend. Just start with 30 minutes. I don't think you really need to do much more than an hour. And I don't think you can do it every day, especially once your body kind of adapts to it. But I wouldn't put on a very heavy vest. And in fact, CJ, if you are out of like what you think is horribly out of shape, just walk for 30 minutes and see how you feel, and then start from there. You'll probably be fine, but it's always best to start too light and progress slow. Again, no more than 10% in the vest. Okay. Okay. Tim. Oh boy. Gutekunst. Oh man, Tim, I'm sorry, buddy, but I'm sure you're used to that. Your last name getting butchered. So we'll just call you Timmy G. Hey, Jim, I love these. Well, thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate it. Here's my question. Should I build my assistance work at the same pace that I'm increasing my main work? Or should I increase the assistance weight or reps at a different pace? Listen, this is how I feel. Your barbell work is going to kind of fluctuate quite a bit, and your assistance work will too. But I'm always a big fan of keeping that barbell work nice and strong and fast and letting those increases come naturally. I'm not always trying to push that because I have noticed, not just me, but the guys I work with, when you start pushing a little bit too hard on the barbell lifts, you start getting tired, you start getting run down. I do a much better job of pushing the assistance work. So technically, if I was your coach, I would make sure that the assistance work was probably pushed a little bit harder in terms of, what I think you should do on that training day, more than the barbell stuff, and letting that build on the barbell stuff, because there's much less of a price to pay. So I hope that works, Tim. All right. So obviously, if both can go up at the same time, that's great, but that doesn't always work. And obviously, you're not going to increase your assistance all the time. But that's kind of what I feel. And it's funny because for years I thought one way and then another way. And then like when you start working with a lot of people with a variety of different levels and stuff, you realize that obviously not everything is the same for everyone, but there seems to be a common thread, and that seems to work very well. And it's funny because that's what Louis Simmons had preached and preached and preached. And, I had known it, I had believed in it, I went back. And so it just, sometimes you kind of have to have some, a couple kicks in the old balls to get you back on track. All right. AB says, hey, just wanted to say you've become really good at these Q&As. Thank you, AB, and I absolutely appreciate you. Well, thank you, AB. I really appreciate this. I love doing this stuff. So I really enjoy it, and as everyone knows, if you like what you do, it makes things much easier. So I was thinking about doing this multiple times a week. I just don't know if we're going to have the same kind of turnout, if it kind of lessens the impact. I don't know. So we will see, though. Okay, but right now, let's keep up with Fridays, and we can have our own little day on YouTube. All right. So Tim, he asked about the assistance work. I didn't see this, Tim. See, he's talking about raising the assistance. He says, for example, I repeat at the same weight for maybe 3 cycles. Should I increase weight or reps on the assistance every cycle instead of every 3rd cycle? Just trying to work smarter. Tim, this is what I would recommend, man. I wrote a little bit of this on the forum, is your assistance is going to fluctuate too, okay? And so we generally have like 15 different crazy things that we can do for assistance work. And if it's just like a normal day and the kids are just kind of, we'll just listen, everyone's got to do 3 sets. 2 of those sets have to be near failure. Let's go let it rip. All right, not a big deal, especially for young athletes. They don't really understand failure as much. Maybe there's a day, Tim, where your dumbbell presses feel good, and then you're like, listen, man, I'm going to grab the 50s, and I'm going to do 100 total reps here. I'm just going to go ham loaf on this. Go ahead and do it, man. There's all kinds of different little challenges. We did, what was it? On Wednesday, we did dumbbell squat, and I said, listen, be as creative as you want. One of my kids decided he was going to do a 100-pound dumbbell for 100 reps total. Then he did 115 for 20, and I think 130 for 10. But he just decided, I'm going to do 100 reps with a 100-pound dumbbell. Let's see what happens. So I think, Tim, I understand you're trying to block all that out and plan it. But, man, on some of those days, have different variations in there that you can kind of push. Like one of the things, what did we do? On dips with another kid that I coach. We wanted to push kind of the dips that day. He was feeling good. So we did a dip with, I think, 40 pounds. We did a dip every 5 seconds with a static hold at the top. We did that for 3 sets every 90 seconds. And it was awesome. Like, it was just a variation. There's a million different things you can do. So be as creative, Tim. Don't just do, I'm going to do a set of 10, set of 8. Man, fuck that. Push the reps, push the volume sometimes, have some fun, be creative, figure out dumb things to do because it will keep your training more exciting. It will kind of keep that lizard brain of yours, your dude brain from getting atrophied. So that's what I would recommend. And again, I think I did write something on the forum, like dumb assistant stuff that we've done. And I just try and be creative. So we did another thing we like to do is we do 5 push-ups every 20 seconds as a group and just see who the last man standing is, stuff like that. So highly recommended. So, Jesse, how you doing, buddy? Jesse Rosenberger says, hey, Jim, you check out the new High on Fire album that came out. I watched their new song that came out. It was a little bit slower, and I loved it. I think that album was awesome, or that song was really awesome. It's a long song. So I don't know what that was called, though. But James and I watched it, and they got that new drummer, and I think he's doing a great job. Ryan Whitley says, hey, Jim, any tips for maintaining a specific body weight? I am good at losing and gaining weight, but I can't ever seem to maintain my weight very well. I think, Ryan, in your case, you're going to have to figure out your calories and understand there's going to be a lot of – the heavier you are, the more variable there is. When I was like 275, my weight would vary 10 pounds every day, especially when I wake up. I'd be 6 or 7 pounds lighter. And I don't know, maybe I sweated it all out. I don't know. So just understand the heavier you are, there's going to be more fluctuation. So I'll give yourself a plus and minus for maintaining a body weight. So if you're 235 one day and 230, that's fine. Big deal. You're basically the same weight. Now, if you're 105 and 110, that 5 pounds obviously is a bigger percentage of your body weight. So that might be a little bit different. But I think, Ryan, you're going to have to start figuring out like a specific eating schedule, so to speak, with a lot of the same foods and understand where the calories lie. And you'll probably have a window of calories. As you know, it might not always be 3,000 or whatever calories. It might range a little bit. So I would probably do that. One thing I do with the body weight stuff, and I need to lose weight. I feel way better when I'm lighter, obviously, as do most of you guys that have gotten older, is I really watch the portion sizes. And then when I'm hungry, I welcome the hunger now. I'm like, fuck it, let's just be hungry. I'll be fine. Because I spent, the first 35 years of my life, basically, hunger was a bad thing. I needed to gain weight, especially when I was playing football. It's a really weird thing. So lessen the portion sizes. This is for people who are losing weight. Lessen the portion sizes and just welcome the hunger. Take that as a challenge, man. And then say, hey, I'm not going to eat until whatever, or I'm not going to eat this kind of food. And when you do eat, make sure those portions aren't terrible. And some of you may have to count calories and do that, man. I would go ahead and do that too. Okay, Martin writes, hey, Jim, what are your thoughts on TRT as you get older to get levels back up to a higher range? As always, consult with your doctor and what's best for you, right? Is that what I have to say? Martin, listen, man, if you feel like your test levels or if you get them tested and they're low, if I were you, I would go ahead and do it, all right? I wouldn't want to live with a low testosterone level and feeling like crap. That's just me. It may work for some people, and that's fine. I don't really care. I think everyone's going to be a little bit different based on who they are and what they've experienced in their life and how they like to feel. So, Martin, if you feel like you need it, I would go ahead and do it. But just understand you are taking a drug, and there's consequences for everything. Obviously, there's ways to be smart about everything, too. So just understand that. There's always going to be a little bit of a payoff. There's no free lunches in nature. There's no free lunches in medicine, guys. When you understand that, it makes the decisions much easier, and you can stomach a lot of stuff. So, Vicious writes, hey, Jim, if you were to choose a body weight ratio deadlift max to reach and maintain for most of your life without killing yourself, what would it be? Boy, you sound like a young man. Just wait. I'm getting my ass kicked a little bit. That's fine. I love getting older. That means I'm still living. So all the aches and pains, man, and some of the stuff I can and can't do, I'm fine with, man. I don't regret anything, and I look at it as a badge of honor, and I look at all this stuff as a challenge. I would probably say up to a certain point, 2 times your body weight. But again, if you're built to pull, it's going to be pretty easy. If you're not built to pull, that's going to be very difficult. So I would probably choose a number more than a body weight ratio. I think that's probably a little bit easier. So yeah, I wouldn't just train hard. And I always say this, just train hard, try to do the right things, let the chips fall where they may. That's what I would seriously recommend, guys. All right, we're going to get through here. We're going to get through this. All right. Hey, Jim, we need to get you back on the good stuff, looking small. Just giving you a look. Okay, yeah, I'm happy. I don't want to be 290 pounds or 275. In fact, I want to get down to 205. I just don't like feeling like I'm 220 right now. And I always feel better when I lose the weight. And so, all right. All right, Timmy McCain. Hey, Jim, I have a war wagon. Oh, a loaded wheelbarrow. A war wagon. Is it okay to use over a prowler? Yeah. It's not the same thing as a prowler, but that's what's so good about it. Hell, use it, man. I'd love to use that thing. I just got nowhere to store it. So, it's hard to justify that when I have a trap bar I can just carry around. But yeah, go ahead and use it, Tim. Let it rip. Peter, Jim, what are your go-to pizza toppings? Man, sausage and pepperoni and plain cheese. I don't like anything complicated. I don't think pizza needs to be complicated. If you need toppings to make your pizza taste good, then you're totally missing the ball. The crust, the sauce, the seasoning on the sauce, obviously, and the cheese, if those are solid, if you're not happy with the cheese pizza, you have shitty ingredients and you have a shitty pizza. So I keep my things simple and I expect the basics. Does this sound very familiar? I expect the basics to be good. All right. Okay. MRTBP. Sorry. When would you suggest to come back to dynamic day like football? When would you suggest to come back to dynamic play like football? Okay. After an adductors industry and not rushed static load, what kind would you suggest as workaround besides sissy and Zercher squats? All right. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. It sounds like you have an abductor injury and you want to know when you can kind of get back. Listen, this is something that's well out of my wheelhouse, and I'm not afraid to do that. I'm not a physical therapist or a doctor. I don't have any experience with this stuff. And when our kids get injured on the field and something happens, I let our trainer take care of that because I don't know about that. Now you ask about workarounds. Listen, I explained this in one of the videos on injuries, man. You have to go test out different things and see how you feel. So, for example, maybe a sled pull backwards feels really good. Maybe it's horrible. Maybe a prowler, or like Tim McCain says, I loaded the war wagon. Maybe that works well. Maybe a leg press is fine. I don't know. You're going to have to try different things and see how your body reacts to it. Again, you don't need to load it up and go crazy. You just need to just do a few sets here and there. You'll know, and just build up slowly. So again, I don't know about that, man. I apologize. I just don't feel comfortable. I wouldn't even know where to start. So, all right, couple more here. Good evening, Jim. Are you writing any new books? No, I do have a file on my computer that I titled The Training Codex. What's the name of that band? The Codex Necro? Released the album? I can't remember. Oh, Analda Groth or something. So what I do on that, I just write anything I'm thinking at the time, and I just put it in bullet points. So that's what I've been doing, but it hasn't turned into anything. But I'm always trying to write something every single day. Okay, Jim, do you ever do heavier deficit weighted push-ups in the 6 to 12 range? I've been swapping out bench for that. I usually use my plate carrier with 30 to 60 pounds. Heavier deficit weighted push-ups. I'm not sure what you mean by deficit. I guess you're using kind of like a high handles or like low boxes. I do those all the time. I think it's awesome. Just be careful on your shoulder. Make sure you're warmed up and make sure your body's okay with that range of motion. I think that's awesome. All right, Georgie says, hey, Jim, I've been doing 5 through 1 for 6 weeks now, and I keep on progressing, but my 5 rep sets are more like 12 to 14, and my 3+ sets are 10. Do you think I've went too light? So let's just say this right now. The key to this is that first sentence. I've been doing 5 through 1 for 6 weeks now. And ready, everyone? And I keep progressing. That is awesome. Never be in a rush to change something that's working. You are right on track. That's fine. Don't get concerned with the reps aren't between 3 and 5 reps. Dude, get strong at all different rep ranges. Build up your body, build up your strength, and let that progress nice and slow, man. You will thank me. All right, you did not go too light. All right, Adam Jones says, if you're not a power lifter, would you just do trap bar deadlift instead of conventional? Or if you can do it, I don't understand where. Okay, so let's just say this. If you're not a power lifter, would you just do trap bar deadlift instead of conventional deadlift? I don't see what else you're asking here, Adam. I would do whatever I want to do. I don't think you need to commit to one and just do that one. I would do both if you want to. I don't think it doesn't really matter. Man, let it rip. Get strong. Raymond Murillo says, advice for Christians who train through fasting. Just train hard, man, and just accept that you're going to be hungry, and just as always, adapt your training to how you feel. And so have little ways out. We talk about this all the time. Listen, have a plan. If something feels like crap, man, adjust it. That's just the way it goes. And part of that is having a smart training max. You should already have a nice, solid training max. You shouldn't, we talk about this all the time. And then when it comes to assistance work, if you don't have a lot of energy, lower the assistance volume, make easier choices for the volume, and just understand that there's going to be some compromises and be okay with the compromises. All right. All right. We're going to try and get through this real quick here. All right. Alex says, hey, I'm Cheers from Trinidad in the Caribbean. Ooh. My current gym doesn't have space for the standing overhead press, so I've replaced it with the seated variation. Anything I need to adjust? No, that's fine. The only thing you have to understand is when you're doing those, make sure you don't, as everyone here has done a seated press knows, your butt's going to slide forward and going to turn into an incline. If you continually find that, man, just do regular incline presses, whatever incline bench they have, and use that for your main lift. Okay. I'm reaching out from Kentucky. I'm 45 years old. Career firefighter. Doctors want to cut me. Bilateral rotator cuff surgery. I am still trained. I am still functional and serve a purpose. I'd appreciate any advice you could offer for recovery and or alternative to going under the blade. I don't know what bilateral rotator cuff surgery is. I've had my shoulder done. It was the smartest thing I ever did. My shoulder feels 1,000% better. I don't know if you're going to be able to get through it, if I'm going to be honest with you, because once you start getting a little bit older and that shoulder starts to give out, the chances of you getting that back to normal, not very good. But again, if there's a massive, I've had this shoulder done. This shoulder needs to be done. It sucks. And I can tell you right now, it'll never be the same until I have surgery. And I don't even know the way that my rotator cuff has been absolutely screwed. The doctors aren't terribly, I got to find a doctor who's willing to try it. So if I were you, if you injured it fairly recently, I would go ahead and get it done. That's what I would do. And it's going to suck because you're going to miss a lot of training. You're going to have to deal with, sleeping, sitting up and all that other stuff. But in the long run, you'll be better off for it. So, all right. Duncan Wonder Gem says, hey, Jim, any advice on getting better at reps? I always seem to get stuck on the same weight in reps, even though my absolute max goes up. That's the way it goes. I was there. My deadlift and squat and stuff, always in my press, everything got stuck, and that's just the way it goes. So, for example, I could do 500. I don't know what it was, like 500 for 10 on the deadlift, and I could do 585 for 9. It was hard for me to get over. What I did was I just kept on repeating a lot of the weights, and instead of pushing for those reps, I kind of maintained those, and that was fine. And then I found other rep maxes to get better at. And while doing that, man, I really pushed the assistance work. and that's fine. Once you get to a certain point when you're really strong, like I'm not saying I was really strong, but for me, I was very strong. I pretty much maintained the same training maxes. And then I would use different joker sets, not singles, but I would, my final set on the deadlift might be 585. I'd pull it for 9. That's kind of what I was stuck at. And then I would have a plan like, listen, I want to try and pull 635 for 5 today or 635. And that's kind of how I structured that. That's very advanced stuff. The only thing I did when I was younger, especially with the squat and deadlift, and this is how I teach the kids, is when you're doing that stuff, man, we got to, all right, after Barry, I got to set this off. But anyway, because I got to go. So what I did with reps is I would say, listen, my goal, let's say, is 12 reps. And I always break that down while I'm doing the set, and I break it down into manageable chunks. So I'd always try and get the first 3. Those first 3 got to be strong as hell. Then I'm going to get a strong double. We're up to 5. Then I got to get to 8. Then I got to get to 10. And then whatever else I need to get to. So I always broke it up into chunks in my brain. I do it beforehand, and then during the set, that's how I would do it. And I was super aggressive with that. And it takes a little bit of mental and physical prep to get there. So, all right, Barry says, hey, Jim, I've just recovered from serious injury and illness. Well, I'm glad you're better, Barry. And I started with low training maxes. I've been tempted so many times to go up to the max. Listen to this. But I'm fast approaching my lifetime maxes in the press and the bench. Thanks for your advice in your books to keep them low, and it has worked well for me. Barry, that is awesome. Barry Dempster, I really appreciate it. That is awesome advice. And just understand, the longer you take when you're coming back from injury to kind of get back, the better and more manageable those strength gains are, and the less chance you're going to have to re-injure yourself, guys. So always I think that's an awesome thing to do. And an awesome example for Barry. So when you're coming back, man, stay low, and eventually, let's just say after 8 weeks, you're going to feel great, man. Just keep on going with what you're doing. All right. Don't just jump everything up, because you're going to stall that much quicker, and your chance of injury goes through the roof. Holy cow, guys. It's 11:21. And I apologize if I kind of went through some of those quick, but I got to get going. I got work to do here. I got people to train. Anyway, you guys have a great weekend. Do something dumb, conditioning-wise, as always this weekend, if you have the time, energy, and stones to do it. I love all of you. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Again, I don't know. My name is Jim Wendler, author of 531, father of 2 great children, and husband of Juliet Wendler. So I love you guys. Later.